So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of go through, at the sales desk, we run, it feels like hundreds of illustrations every day. So I'm going to do just a typical retirement scenario. That's probably what we run the most. I'll just show you a basic one, and then I'm going to show you how you can play around with it a little bit to really accommodate your specific client. So first, when you come in, you would see the exact same thing that we have, or that I have, life portraits. If you need to go find a client or previous illustration, you can certainly search. But for today, I'm just going to create a brand new client. Really unique name there. I'm going to make him, I'm just going to say 30, and we'll do a male. And then action. And then our flagship product's always going to come up. So it makes it kind of easy for us, that IUL there. So this is how the screen is always going to look. Just a couple things to point out. It's always going to default to standard, 100,000 face amount, and that $180 annual premium. I wish they would leave it blank, because sometimes our newer producers get a little confused, but this is all customizable. We just have default settings. I like to go from top to bottom. I think it just makes it a little bit easier to catch what you're trying to do. So I think for this gentleman, I'm going to make him preferred. He's 30. I think that's pretty reasonable to expect. Right here, you're going to see that you can customize the type of illustration. So you can input all parameters. So if you have a client who says, here's the death benefit I want, here's the premium I want, you can certainly do that. Solving for face amount, that's going to be a situation where your client comes to you and says, I have a premium in mind. That's what I want. You figure out the death benefit. Similar for premium. So, they want a $500,000 death benefit. They just want you to tell them, what's that premium going to be to carry the policy? The one we're going to use today, and the one that we use the most, is going to be solve for cash flow. So this is going to be for those situations where we have a client who is looking at the IUL because they've heard about the cash value accumulation. They want to see retirement. They really specifically are looking for not just that cash value at age 65, for example, but they're looking for that income at age 65. They want you to show them, at 65 to 80, what can I get out of it? What am I looking at? So this is usually what we use the most. So we're going to say that Mr. Smith comes in and that's what he wants. So we're going to immediately solve for cash flow. You're going to see here for face amount option, it's always going to default to minimum, because if a client wants income, they're not caring necessarily about death benefit. That they usually just want that cash value. And then what I'm going to do is, typically option 2 is going to look the best for our client, but we're going to turn it off at the same time we turn off those premiums. So he has told me he's going to stop paying at 65. So I'm going to use this little graph bar right here. And instead of running it to age 120, I'm just going to run it to age 65. So we're going to turn off premiums at 65, and we're going to turn off that increasing death benefit. Okay. Columbus Life, our allocations, if you ever want to modify them, you can certainly do that. Our illustration software is designed to show you what is illustrating the best, because it's going to have the highest cap rate right now. So right now I'm going to leave it at the default. We're going to illustrate at a 5.62. Currently, we're just over 8%. So we're a little bit more conservative for our clients. We don't want to illustrate, an 8.25 cap rate, because that's the max. We want to make sure that we're pretty conservative in what we show, and we want to make sure that we represent it the best that we can. So we're just going to leave that at 5.62. I'm going to skip over the SCR for now. That is something that you can add if you want, but we can talk about that towards the end. So for our premium, Mr. Smith says, I want to pay, $500 a month. So I'm going to go ahead and put in $500. It's automatically going to default to age 65 because that's what our retirement defaults to. And I'm going to show you in a minute how you can change that. And instead of annual, I'm going to change it to monthly. And I'll go ahead and just let our income run to 65 to 85. Again, that's the default. We can tweak that at any age. This is just your basic scenario. So right here, I'm going to go over to values. So we can download the full PDF, but I think values is going to be the best tool you're going to use because it's going to show you right at a quick glance what we're looking at. So we know very quickly how this policy is going to run. We can see our starting death benefit and annualized premium. Everything's just going to be annualized. Just scrolling down, we're making sure the policy's running. And then right here, that $53,820, that's showing us the income. So we're seeing the client's income. We're watching it run to the age we told it, so 85. And then it's going to run to age 120 at that assumed interest rate. So that's just your basic illustration for income. Is there any questions before I go to the next one? Am I okay? So now that we have just the traditional, this is where we can start having some fun and really accommodate our client. I like to talk to agents when we talk about clients because I think the more we know about their life, the better. So one thing I start off with when I do training webinars is I have a lot of clients too who maybe $500 right now is heavy for them. Maybe they say, this guy's 30. Maybe they've had their first child. Maybe they, bought a new house. Maybe there's just some stuff going on. And he says, I don't know if $500 is doable right this second. So we're going to talk to him a little bit more about his financial situation. And he says, you know what? I think I can do 300 now, 400 in a couple years, and then hit that 500 mark. And then what we're going to tell them is great. Let's stair step that premium. This is going to put the client in control. And I like that idea because I feel like if they're in control, they feel more comfortable making that decision instead of us saying, this is what you need to contribute. So let's say we're going to do $300. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Let me tell you where I found that at. So right here, that blue and green graph bar, that's where you can modify the premium. So we're going to do $300. And let's say he wants to do that for 5 years. He says, okay, I feel comfortable doing 300 for 5 years. So we're just going to override and do 5 years. So that's our first line. And then say Mr. Smith says, you know what, I feel comfortable. I'm going to get a raise. I feel like we're going to be doing better. Maybe my wife is going to go back to work. My child will start school. I can do 400. So we're going to hit that green button right here to add a row. We're going to tell our system that we're going to do $400 and we're going to do that for 5 years. So it's just an extra $100. And then maybe at that point, he says, you know what, let's go ahead after 10 years, I definitely want to commit to $500 until my retirement age. So then we're going to do $500 again. And to age, we'll just do 65 because that's when he wants to see that retirement income. So we've stair-stepped his premium, listened to his needs, and hopefully this is something that he feels in control of. And what I also like to bring up is that this is a flexible premium product. So if he says $300 for 5 years, but maybe he switches jobs, maybe he gets a raise that he wasn't expecting or a bonus, he can always tweak this and put in more money. but this is what he feels comfortable with. So we're just going to hit OK. And all we've done is stair step the premium. We're not changing anything else. Just going to click that values tab one more time. And then you can see here at that annualized premium, we're just showing that stair step, that increased premium. And then we see his income. So same thing, same retirement plan. He's just in more control of that. Can always add more later. Now, something else I like to show is we're assuming that our retirement age is 65. One thing I think that we've all seen, at least and I know that we have definitely seen it on the desk, is we're leaning a little bit later in life to retire. It's not necessarily that 65 anymore. We're seeing a little bit later. And I just want to show real quick what happens. We have this, but Mr. Smith says, you know, I don't think I'm going to need the money right away. I don't think I'm going to need it necessarily at 65. Maybe he can retire. We had somebody recently who retired, but then went back to their job for a couple years part-time. Maybe he retires, but his wife is working. So he says, you know, I want to hold off for about 5 more years. So he decides he's just going to wait 5 years to take income, still wants to keep the payments, wants to stop them at 65, whatever change he wants, but he says, let's just hold off 5 more years. So all we have to do is we're just going to change that from age to 70. So just by waiting, he just had over 40,000 before, but by waiting 5 years, he now has 69,000 in income. So just by waiting 5 years, he's changed that amount almost $20,000. So there's a lot of different ways that they can play around with this and really accommodate what their lifestyle looks like. I think that's honestly my favorite thing with this product and with these illustrations. We can change and accommodate premium, face amount, and things like that for the client and when they choose to take income. I did mention briefly earlier that I was going to talk about this SCR. We don't see it a lot, but what this does, it's called a supplemental coverage rider. And I think some companies may have it like as a term rider. For Columbus Life, it is a permanent part of your product. So if the client gets a $500,000 policy, for example, it's $500,000, and then we put $250,000 of it in this supplemental coverage rider. Oh, I got to put input here. What that means is their policy is still $500,000. They will not know the difference, but half of it is a part of this rider. And what that does is it's going to help blend down like the cost of insurance. Where we mainly see it is going to be in situations where you as the producer may own the policy, say it's a spouse, a family member, or if you have a neighbor or things like that, because the trade-off in blending down the premium for your client is that it does take away from the target premium, which is what our producers make commission on. But it can be a very good tool to keep in your back pocket if you're ever in a competitive situation and you want to place the case, but you need to meet a premium. Or again, if you're owning the policy and, like if it's your child, your spouse, you're not as worried about, your target commission, you want to blend that cost down.